Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. My wife was my world. I loved her so much that I could go to any lengths for her. And today, the joyful news she gave me over the phone in the morning completely changed my world. Zainab told me that I was going to be a father, and that news was the greatest happiness in the world for me. I was busy in meetings all day, which is why I couldn't make it home earlier. But as soon as work ended, I set out for home with a bouquet of flowers. It was around 11 at night. I was extremely late today, and I regretted that. Anyway, when I entered the house, there was silence all around. Everyone was in their rooms. I went straight to my room, but Zainab wasn't there. I started calling out to her, "Zainab, Zainab, where are you?" I called her a couple of times, but got no response. I sat down on the bed to take off my shoes, assuming she might be in the washroom. But when 5 or 10 minutes passed with no sign of movement, I got up and knocked on the washroom door. There was no sound from inside. In fact, the door just swung open. Zainab wasn't in the washroom either. Then where was she? I quickly stepped out of the room and began searching the entire house. I checked every single corner, but she was nowhere to be found. Finally, I knocked on my mother's room door and went inside. She was lying on the bed with her eyes closed, but sat up as soon as she saw me. "You're back, my child. You're very late today," she said. I asked her, "Amma, where is Zainab? I've searched the entire house, but she's nowhere to be found." She shrugged and replied, "I don't know. She left the house in the evening and hasn't come back yet." I said, "No, Amma, she's nowhere to be found. Where did she go? She didn't even tell anyone." Amma let out a deep sigh and said, "She often went out without informing anyone. You may not like what I'm about to say, but the truth is that she had many admirers. She would fearlessly leave the house to meet them, because she neither feared you nor worried about her reputation. Hidden behind her veil, she could easily go around with her lovers." Hearing Amma's words, I felt deeply hurt. I said, "Amma, for God's sake, don't say such things. Not now. Please don't talk like this. I'm about to become a father. At least show some respect for my wife's honor." She looked at me in surprise and then asked, "What are you saying? Zainab was expecting?" I smiled and replied, "Yes, Amma, she was. But she told me before anyone else. I asked her not to tell anyone for now, because we wanted to surprise everyone together. But I don't know where she's gone." A strange expression crossed Amma's face. She said, "Just like she went, she'll come back too. Don't worry." I said, "Amma, it's 11 at night. She's never stayed out this late before. I'm going to check with Imam Sahib. Maybe she wasn't feeling well and went there." Amma didn't respond, so I left the house. Zainab was actually Imam Sahib's daughter, so I went straight to his home. I asked him if he had any information about her, but he too said he didn't know anything. That only increased my worry. I asked a few neighbors and looked around the area myself, but there was no sign of Zainab. Overwhelmed with anxiety, I finally filed a missing persons report with the police. They assured me they would search for her and sent me back home. I was so restless and worried that I couldn't sit still for even a moment at home. I kept stepping out, roaming the streets, searching for her. Night passed, and so did the next day. And then another night came, but there was still no trace of Zainab and no peace in my heart. Days began to pass quickly. Imam Sahib and his family were in terrible distress, and I was in no better state. I used to sit alone and cry, thinking over and over about what might have happened to my wife and unborn child. Where had she gone, and why hadn't she come back? Amma kept insisting that her character wasn't good, that she must have found someone better than me and left for good. But I couldn't believe that. She had called me herself to give the good news of her pregnancy. I had felt the joy in her voice. She was so grateful to God for the coming of this child. How could she do something like that? Besides, she was a pious girl. I didn't believe what Amma said, but I locked myself away in my room. And like that, 15 to 20 days passed. Then one day, Amma started trying to talk sense into me. She said, "Go to the office, take care of your business. Don't let this whole situation with your wife ruin your work. She's probably happy with her lover somewhere, And here you are, destroying yourself in her grief. How long will you keep mourning like this? Your sisters are growing up. Think about their weddings too. After a lot of persuasion, I started going back to work, but I couldn't focus on anything. Then one night, about a month later, I came home very late. As I was walking toward my room, I suddenly heard some noises coming from the storeroom. I stopped in my tracks, confused. I walked toward the storeroom, and what I saw there left me utterly shocked, because inside, I always wanted a good, virtuous wife, someone who could be a loving mother to my children, someone who could raise them with proper values. So when it was time for me to get married, I told Amma clearly, I want a girl who is regular in her prayers and fasting and who is very religious. Amma looked at me strangely and said, "Son, in today's world, who even wants such girls anymore? Besides, our household environment isn't like that at all." In truth, our home had a very modern environment. Everyone sat and talked together freely. My sisters would sit side by side with our male cousins, even though they were non-mahram, not closely related. The casualness between them always seemed very odd to me. Even though I had grown up in that same environment since childhood, my mindset was always a bit different. I never liked all that, even from an early age. I preferred spending my time with righteous people, and gradually that began to change my thinking even more. Whenever I tried to stop or correct my sisters, my mother would always intervene and say, "Son, they're all relatives, family members. Don't you trust your sister's character? These boys are like their brothers." I had tried several times to explain to my mother and sisters that it wasn't a matter of their character. It was about religious principles, modesty, and the importance of observing proper boundaries. But neither my mother nor my sisters could understand that. They were all very open-minded and liberal in their ways. There were frequent parties at our house. Boys and girls would gather, play loud music, dance, laugh, and make a lot of noise. I couldn't tolerate any of it. So when I expressed my desire to marry a pious and religious girl, my mother flatly refused. She said, "Where will I keep a girl like that? As if one is not enough who keeps preaching to us all the time. Now you want me to bring in another one like her?" Then she said, "I've decided to arrange your marriage with your cousin, Rafia's daughter." Hearing that, I jumped up and said, "Absolutely not. I will not marry Tamana. She's extremely modern, shakes hands with non-mahram men, chats freely with them. She even becomes overly familiar with me." Amma replied, "What's wrong with that? Every girl does this nowadays. That's how times have changed. We must change with the times." I shook my head and said, "No, Amma, times may change, but for us Muslims, our teachings never change." At that, Amma fell silent, but she swore she would never look for a girl like the one I wanted. That evening, Amma invited my aunt and Tamana over. Tamana, without any hesitation, walked straight into my room, sat down in front of me, took my hand in hers and said, "Assad, I really like you. Kala has asked for your hand from Amma, and I'm so happy that we're going to be together. Once we get married, I'll make sure to change this boring personality of yours and turn you into someone like me." Her face was glowing with excitement, but for me it felt like the sky had fallen on my head. I looked at her from head to toe. The clothes she wore were barely deserving of the name, half-exposing, see-through fabric that left nothing to the imagination. These days, such outfits were sold under the name of fashion brands, but wearing them or not made little difference. I instinctively averted my gaze. I pulled my hand away from hers and said firmly, "Tamana, I don't want to marry you. I told Amma clearly, but she doesn't understand. It's better you don't take this to heart. I'll speak to Amma myself." I had rejected her very clearly. She stared at me for a long moment, then finally said, "One day you'll regret this decision." Then she stood up and walked out of the room. That night, Amma and I had a big argument. In the end, Amma herself had to tell Khala that the marriage proposal was not accepted. After that, Amma stopped talking to me. She was very upset. I kept trying to make amends every day, but to Amma, Tamana mattered more than I did. Eventually, after much pleading, Amma forgave me, but from that day on, neither she nor I ever brought up the topic of marriage again. 3 months passed, then one day Fabrini, After offering my prayer, I stepped out of the mosque and noticed that the Imam Sahib was sitting silently in a corner. There was worry on his face. I walked up to him and sat down, asking, Imam Sahib, is everything all right? If there's something troubling you, please tell me. Maybe I can help. We were a well-off family, and I assumed maybe he was facing some financial difficulty. I was ready to help him immediately because he was a truly pious and respected man. He had been the imam of our local mosque for quite some time, and everyone knew him well. The Imam Sahib lifted his head, looked at me, and smiled gently. He said, Son, I am content with whatever Allah wills. I replied, Still, Imam Sahib, Allah often sends help for his pious servants through someone. Who knows? Maybe I could be that means of help. I held his hand sincerely. He softly said, My daughter Zainab is a very sweet girl. I had arranged her marriage with a boy of my choosing, but within 6 months, that boy passed away. Since then, proposals have stopped coming for her. I don't know why, but people are calling my daughter unlucky. They say the boy died because of her, even though it was Allah's will. He continued, I don't know how to explain to people anymore. People's beliefs have become so weak these days, but I have full faith in Allah. Zainab is my only daughter, a pious girl, regular in her prayers. I just want her to marry someone equally righteous. His words deeply moved me. It was true. None of us had ever seen the women of Imam Sahib's family. If anyone from their house ever stepped outside, they were so well veiled that no one could tell who they were. We all respected the Imam greatly. Without ever seeing her or knowing much about her, I made my decision in a single moment. I wanted to make Zainab my life partner. If her fiancé had passed away by Allah's will, how was that her fault? Why should she be punished for something she had no hand in? I turned to Imam Sahib and said, Don't worry, soon your problem will be solved. Hearing that, he smiled again and said, Yes, indeed, Allah is great. He never leaves his servants alone. After saying goodbye to Imam Sahib, I returned home. My sisters and Amma were sitting in the living room with the TV playing at full volume. I picked up the remote and turned off the TV, then said to my mother, Amma, I need to talk to you about something important. Hearing this, Amma said, Go ahead, say it. You'll probably tell us again that watching TV is a sin, that we watch it all the time, and the volume is always too loud. She snapped with irritation. I never understood why Amma got so annoyed with such topics. I said calmly, No, Amma, it's something else this time. As soon as I said that, my sisters and brothers also gathered around. I was the eldest among us, with 2 younger brothers and 2 sisters. I said to Amma, I've found a girl for myself. Please arrange to go with a proposal. I want a simple wedding. Amma was startled. She asked, You wanted a pious and virtuous girl. So who have you found now? Smiling, I said, I haven't seen her, but I'm certain she is righteous and religious. That's enough for me. Just take the proposal, Amma. Amma began to question. Who is she? Where does she live? What does her father do? What's their status? I gently told her, she is Zainab, the daughter of our mosque's Imam Sahib. As soon as Amma heard that, she practically jumped. She exclaimed, How can I make such a girl my daughter-in-law? Her father lives in the quarters attached to the mosque. They don't have anything. His salary is barely enough. If I bring such a girl into our home, the whole family will laugh at me. After raising a son with an MBA and helping him build a business, I should now bring home a girl like this? Your aunts will scoff at me. They'll say, How can I leave a well-educated, stylish girl like Tamana and accept this girl who won't even fit into our family? I looked at my mother for a moment and said, I don't want to marry for social status, and I don't want a marriage to impress the world. My wife, my life partner, would come to make my life beautiful, not to please the rest of my family. I would be happy if I could marry a religious girl. Zainab is not only pious, but also a hafiza, memorizer of the Quran, and an alima, scholar of Islam. Amma replied, This obsession with piety is temporary, son. Once she comes home and starts objecting to things, you'll regret your decision. And those people are all so strict about purdah. How will such a girl even adjust in our house? You have 2 younger brothers at home. She'll use the excuse of purdah and make you move into a separate house. I know these girls well. This whole veil business is just a ploy to impress their husbands while doing whatever they want behind their backs. I know very well what these girls get up to when no one's looking. Listening to my mother say such things deeply hurt me. I said, Amma, not all women are the same. If I marry, it will be to Zainab. Otherwise, remove the idea of my marriage altogether. I stood firmly by my decision. For a whole week, there were constant arguments at home. But eventually, Amma gave in. She and my sisters went with the marriage proposal. And a week later, I was married to Zainab in a very simple nikah ceremony. I didn't take a single penny as dowry from my father-in-law. I arranged everything myself, set up my own room, and brought Zainab home with modesty and respect. The relatives caused a lot of drama over the fact that the marriage was done so quietly. I silenced everyone by saying they'd be invited to the wedding reception, walima. I held a very grand walima, but with strict arrangements for purdah. I booked a separate hall for men and another for women. I didn't even stay with my wife during the event. I remained in the men's section the whole time. All the guests from my in-laws' side were highly religious and observant, so I took special care of this. But as soon as we returned home, a huge argument broke out again. As soon as we returned from the walima, my siblings and mother began to criticize. You had such a grand reception, and yet there's not a single photo of you and your bride? And whoever came to the event was shocked to see that we married into such a poor household. I didn't want to escalate the argument any further, so I told Amma, let's talk in the morning. I didn't have the strength to keep fighting with my family. But Zainab had already sensed that my family wasn't happy about our marriage. When she asked me directly, I told her the entire truth. She was deeply upset, poor thing. But my sisters tried to comfort her, saying, Wetoya, with time everything will settle down. However, things only continued to get worse. Zainab used to wear a hijab in the house because I had two younger brothers who were grown men and therefore non-mahram to her. My mother constantly scolded Zainab over this, complaining to me, are your brothers so immoral? Do you think they're so shameless that they'd cast a glance at their bobby? What is your wife trying to prove with all this purdah? I explained to Amma repeatedly that Sharia requires such modesty, but Amma saw Zainab's modesty as cunning and manipulation. As the days passed, Zainab's difficulties in the house grew, and so did my worries. Whenever I returned home, Amma made sure to mention, your wife goes to the rooftop without her hijab. She's not as strict about purdah when you're not around. I had never seen anything like that with my own eyes, but Amma and my sisters insisted, if she wears purdah, it's only around your brothers, not around others. I knew Amma had wanted Tamana to become her daughter-in-law, and perhaps that's why she couldn't bring herself to accept Zainab. So I chose to remain silent. I didn't respond to Amma, nor did I question Zainab about anything. 3 or 4 months into our marriage, I received a phone call from Zainab with surprising news. She said, I wasn't feeling well today, so my mother took me to the hospital. I didn't tell you because your mother had forbidden me from going out, and I didn't want to worry you. And there, I found out. I'm expecting. I've returned home now, but I haven't told anyone in your family yet. Let's tell them together. When Zainab shared the news with me, I was overjoyed. The happiness of expecting a child is unmatched. I had thought that once Zainab and I would tell Amma, she would be happy, and her dislike for Zainab would vanish. Perhaps she would finally accept Zainab, and all the hatred would end. But when I returned home, Zainab was nowhere to be found. I was utterly shocked. Amma immediately said, I told you, these girls are always clever behind the veil. She must have run away with some lover. But I refused to believe her. I went straight to Zainab's house. Her mother told me she returned home after coming back from the hospital. I personally dropped her off at your door. I was losing my mind. In a state of panic, I immediately filed a missing person report with the police, but there was still no trace of her. Days went by. A month passed. Zainab's family was also in distress, and I was completely devastated. After about 15 to 20 days, when Amma saw that I was locking myself in my room, she forced me to go to work. Then one night, when I came home late from the office, I heard strange noises coming from the storeroom. The storeroom was quite far from my room, and it was at the back of the house. But I had brought some old items from the office and needed to put them in the storeroom, so I went to check. As I approached the door, I heard odd whispers from inside. I stopped in my tracks. I quietly opened the door, and when the scene unfolded in front of my eyes, I couldn't believe it. Zainab. Zainab was tied up with ropes, lying on the floor of the storeroom. Her condition was horrifying. Her face showed pain, her eyes were full of helplessness, and tears were streaming down her face. And my mother, my own mother, was standing over her, saying, "It's just a matter of a few more days. I'll arrange the wedding between Aso and Tamanna. Then I'll send you far away from here. You won't even show your face in this house again." What did you think? That you would take over my son's heart, pretending to be pious and modest? That you would win his love? It will never happen. One day he will hate girls like you. The so-called modest girls. When he finds out the truth, that you ran away with another man, no matter how much you try to defend your character, he will never believe you. Zainab, in tears, replied, "I'm pregnant. How could you do such cruelty, knowing this?" But my mother was possessed by evil. When I entered, I saw her startled, realizing she hadn't expected me to be at the storeroom door in the middle of the night. I immediately freed Zainab and rushed her to the hospital, as her condition was very serious. After a while, when she became somewhat stable, instead of bringing her back home, I took her to her house. I left her with Imam Sahib and told him everything honestly. I asked him to look after Zainab until I could punish my mother for what she had done. When I returned home, Amma was sitting at my feet, crying and begging for forgiveness. But I took 2 steps back and told her that I was done. I packed all of my and Zainab's belongings, rented an apartment the next day, and moved everything there. I told Amma, "Your punishment is that you will never see my face again. If you have hatred for pious, modest people, I too want to join them. So from now on, there will be no connection between us." I brought Zainab to our new home. What had happened to her was horrifying, but with my love, I helped her heal. It had been a long time since I had met my family. Sometimes I deeply missed my mother, but then I reminded myself that what she had done to Zainab, I could never forgive her for. What do you think? Should I forgive my mother? Why is it that in today's world, we look down upon pious, righteous, and modest people as if their goodness is their flaw?